Hello and welcome to another episode of Cake Fight Presents The Making Of. I'm writer, director, producer Paige Feldman, and this week, as every week, I'm taking you inside my process of making my debut feature film. We're going from idea to premiere in real time. Last week, I took you through my emotional journey of creating backstory for Mitch and Ash, my two main characters, and talked about how my creative journey is influencing what I decided to do for their backstory, and yeah, it got real. This week it's maybe a little less personal because I'm delving into Mitch and Ash's characters as a whole and looking to create their greatest fears, the wounds, the misbeliefs they have about the world that will help enrich their characters and enrich the story and make their love story really better and more exciting, and also help increase the conflict because I need that. I need that help. So the thing about wounds and fears and misbeliefs is that it all comes back to theme. And when I started this process, I thought, oh, thank goodness, because I outlined from theme, and this is going to be a piece of cake. So I went back. First step was to go and read the theme that I'd created. And I'm going to read it to you. What is the value of ritual? What is the value of sameness? When do you decide to make a change? How do you take care of yourself without losing focus on the important things and people in your life? It's essentially a series of questions about the value of tradition and ritual versus the value of individualism. It's a little bit wishy-washy, but it is fascinating, and it's a set of ideas I'm really excited to explore in the script. One problem is that when I'm looking to create a character wound or fear or misbelief that is tied into that theme, it sucks. Really sucks. It's a terrible theme statement. It's good for, intellectual stimulation and the writing, and probably a film critic at some point can talk about all of these ideas. But when I'm looking to write and create character wounds and fears, it is terrible. It sucks. It's awful. It needs to go. So I found a new theme, and I'm going to explain to you, first of all, how all of this connects to theme in the first place, because character fears versus theme, what's that about? And also how I went about finding my new theme and then building those fears and wounds and misbeliefs from that theme. Now, I just checked the clock when I was reading my theme statement. My tea is done steeping, so I am going to leave you with rolling those titles, and then when I come back with my tea, I'll dive into all of that. So, see you all in a bit. My tea. Look, the camera is adjusting to make sure I'm in my best light. This is great. Okay, so what is a character's wound or greatest fear? A wound or greatest fear is simply the thing that the character is most scared of. But more than that, it's an internal stumbling block they have to overcome in order to achieve their goal. Now, it's a little bit more nuanced and subtle and internal and psychological than, let's say, a trapeze artist who is afraid of heights, and heights is their greatest fear. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is more deep inside, more instinctual, more visceral. Let's take She's All That, the classic early 2000s romantic comedy with Rachel Lee Cook and Freddie Prinze Jr. Now, Lainey, Rachel Lee Cook's character, is used to being the butt of everyone's jokes, ridiculed, unpopular, unliked. So when Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character comes up to her to ask her out, which he is doing for a bet, but he's not a bad person. Well, maybe he is. Arguable. Anyway, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character comes up to her and asks her out. Her initial response is to lash out.
Was this some kind of new dork outreach program? I'm just
no. Because she is afraid of being in love. She's afraid of being accepted because she is afraid of getting rejected again. So she actively pushes people away.
Look, I kicked your ass in 3rd grade. I'll do it again.
She's afraid to be open to new people and new experiences. So her greatest fear, which is something that's been realized, is rejection. And then let's also take Frozen, the Disney movie, not the horror movie, because I haven't seen that one. I don't want to watch people get stranded on a ski lift. That seems awful, because riding a ski lift in general is slightly terrifying to me, because I am afraid of heights, and I don't want to be a trapeze artist, but I digress. So in Frozen, Elsa's greatest fear is that she is going to hurt Anna, her sister. And this has happened because she has hurt Anna before, accidentally, with her powers. So Elsa refuses to be around Anna after she hurts her. She refuses to use her powers. She avoids all of those things in order to keep her greatest fear that she is going to hurt her sister at bay. But she has to overcome that, just as Lainey has to overcome her fear of rejection in order to achieve her goal, achieve self-actualization in Lainey's case. I would argue that that's more of her goal, is to just be a fully realized human being who's unafraid to feel emotion. And goals are generally tricky in romantic comedies, which is why I made the video I did about writing a logline for a rom-com, because they are different than regular loglines. But again, digress. Okay, great. So we have the wound, but now why is theme connected to it? So to know that, first you need to know that the character's wound or greatest fear, the thing that hurt them, that created this fear within them, is so deeply ingrained in their being that it's created a narrative within themselves about how the world works. And this narrative is their core belief about the world. It shapes all of their actions. It is the thing that they revolve their life around. This is their core truth about how the world works. And to show you what that looks like in action, I'm going to go back to Frozen, because Disney and Pixar films especially are fantastic at illustrating this point, at using this point, and for it to be pretty easy to recognize and simple to understand. So if you are struggling with this concept, I'd highly recommend just going and grabbing a Disney film, especially Disney Pixar film, watching it and trying to pick out the characters' fear and misbelief and all of these things, and seeing how it relates to theme once we get to the end of this video, though. So in Frozen, Elsa's core belief is that she is better off alone. And this has come from the fact that she hurt her sister. She's afraid she's going to hurt her again, and she doesn't want to do that. So the best thing she can do is avoid her sister, avoid using her powers, and just wall herself off in this gorgeous ice castle. However, Elsa is wrong. This is a misbelief. Her core belief is wrong. And the film proves it, because, sorry, spoilers, in order for Anna to live and survive the attack that was put upon her, she needed Elsa. Elsa needed to be there so that Anna could learn to save herself. Also, Elsa needs Anna. She proves it by coming back to help her, to save her, that regardless of whether Elsa believes she's better off alone, there's something inside her that knows that she needs her sister and she needs her kingdom. So Anna and Elsa are in fact stronger together and better together. And that idea that you're stronger in numbers, you're stronger with family, you're better off being with people than being alone, that is the opposite of Elsa's core belief. And that, my friends, is what theme is. Theme is the opposite of your character's initial core belief at the outset of the film. And their core belief is created through their greatest fear and that wound. So theme is essentially the thesis statement of the film. And I like to think of it like geometry, which I was not very good at, but I always loved geometric proofs, where you start with a statement at the beginning and you have to prove it true or prove it false. And so every film is kind of like a geometric proof, where you have the character's core belief as the thing that you're trying to prove. And then you go through the whole film and the character acts in a way that comports with their core belief, and things keep getting worse. And only when they can break the cycle, see that they're wrong, stop being held captive by their core belief, do they achieve their goal, get what they want, save the day, win their romantic interest. Lover is such a weird word. Win their romantic interest, do whatever they need to do to create a happy ending. And if they don't create a happy ending, maybe that's because they didn't conquer that fear, that misbelief. Good theme is fighting against what your character is doing, and that also creates conflict. So This is why the wound in The Greatest Fear is connected to theme. It's because it creates a belief in a character that is the opposite of the theme you're trying to prove. All right, so we've connected our character's wounds and greatest fears into theme because those wounds and greatest fears create a narrative within the character's mind about how the world works. And the way that the world works in their head is contrary to, in fact, the exact opposite of what the theme is, the thing that we are trying to prove by telling this story. So now, very important question. Why did my theme suck? In general, it's not the content of the theme, because those questions that I asked, that I read at the beginning of this video about the value of ritual and tradition versus the value of forging your own path, they're still fascinating to me. And those are still things that I'm looking to explore in the script and find answers for. And that is really the key of why it's a terrible theme statement for the purposes of character development and where we're going with this right now. It's because I don't have answers to those questions yet. There's no definitive statement. There's nothing to prove or disprove. They're not yes or no questions. They're all open-ended questions. And while that would make a really interesting essay, I don't know the answers to those questions yet, so I don't know even like how to argue yes or no. We're looking at a film like a geometric proof. You need to be able to argue the point or against the point of the proof in order to figure out whether it works. Or you could take a look at a theme like an essay in AP English. You know, if you remember your English classes in high school, you know that the thing you need in order to write an essay is a thesis statement. And I don't know about you, but like my English teachers required us to get our thesis statements approved before we started writing. And they were always advocated for the simpler, the better. Thesis statements are basically theme statements here, if we're using this analogy. And so you need a simple statement that you can prove or disprove. And a question's not a simple statement, which is why my theme does not work for the purposes of character development in this way. So I had two options here. Option number one was to answer my questions in a simple theme statement. Simple statement about how the world works. The thing is, I tried, but I couldn't. I couldn't answer like, is ritual better than forging your own path, or is forging your own path better than ritual? What value does ritual have? How do I make that into a simple statement? I couldn't really figure out the answers because my answers are all about this are it depends. And from last week, you know that in order for me to write anything, I need to feel it's true down to my core. And so this theme statement needed to be something that I can stand by, that I wholeheartedly believe. And so just choosing a side isn't going to work for me. Now, if you're in this situation where your theme is initially a series of questions and you're good just choosing a side and that works for you, that makes things a lot easier. But in my case, I needed to choose option number two, which is to create a whole new theme statement out of whole cloth. That's what I did. I decided to create a whole new theme statement. Now, how did I do that? I started back at my character's fears and misbeliefs, because while I wasn't sure what theme I wanted to explore here, I've already written a whole draft of this script, so I know Mitch and Ash pretty well. Even if I couldn't pinpoint exactly what their greatest fears are, I had some feelings. So I use my magic brainstorm technique, which is, in short, I make myself list off 20 things in answer to the question I'm trying to ask, which is, what is Ash's greatest fear? What is Mitch's greatest fear? And for more on how this technique works and why I like it, you can check out this video up here. So I'm going to pull up screen share for you and show you my brainstorming list. All right. So we have these lists here of like what Ash's misbelief is, of what Ash's misbelief is, and what Mitch's misbelief is. I totally, when I went into this exercise, thought Mitch's misbelief would be there's such a thing as being too old. Number 3, or there's only a finite amount of time to accomplish what you want in life. Perception is everything. My worth and success is defined by the outside world. But I kind of forced myself to keep going because like Ash's misbelief was a lot harder to pinpoint. So it was really easy for me to just be like, okay, I'm going to go through my 20 things. But for Mitch, I thought that I had her pegged, and I'm so glad that I kept going here when this exercise, because you see number 16, love is something I give others, not that I give myself. Self-love is a buzzword. That is something that I kind of wrote for Ash. Love is something that others give you, not that you give yourself. Self-love is a buzzword. In fact, this first part is the exact opposite of what Mitch's misbelief is. It's pretty nuts. Now, I didn't see that at first because initially I had written no one owes me love and I owe everyone else love in Mitch's section. But when I was reviewing these lists, and that's the next step, I noticed that that phrase was almost the opposite of Ash's number 12 and reworded it to emphasize those similarities. So when I saw these two same but different misbeliefs, I got so excited because they both connect to the same idea that self-love is a buzzword, which is again something that I wrote down there after the fact. But they are different versions of that. So I initially thought I was going to have one theme for Ash and one theme for Mitch, and they'd both kind of have to work towards getting to the opposite of their own theme. But when I saw that they could converge on the same theme, rewrite the same misbelief, and then come together to an understanding of the same theme, of the same new belief, I thought this is magic, especially for a romantic comedy, to have the two characters fighting their own battles, having their own emotional journey, their own journey towards their own goals, and yet be working to conquer the same type of misbelief, even if they're coming at it from different angles. This is kind of this, because the fact that Ash is just looking for love from other people, and Mitch, I don't know why I keep saying Mitch never expects to have love, but just gives it out and becomes almost an empty pool. Like, there's conflict right there, because if Ash just takes without giving and Mitch gives without taking, they're both wanting something, and they have some place to put their self-love. So I chose those two. Super excited about them. And then, of course, I highlighted some others because might as well see what works. But then I went to brainstorming some themes, which are just things that were the opposite of these misbeliefs. And so for Mitch, there's always time to make a change was the thing I thought, this is where she could go. And Ash's people are stronger together, which is the same as Frozen, kind of. Based on his, like, no one understands me, being alone is the best way to be. But then I settled on the opposite of those two in red that are like the same but different misbeliefs, which is you can only love someone else if you love yourself first. So that is the theme of this film. That's the theme that's connected to character. And I'm really excited about, I got goosebumps just talking about it. I don't know if you can see. So that's the theme for this story. That's the theme that's going back to character, which is in order to love someone else, you have to love yourself first. In order to be loved and accept love by someone else, you have to love yourself first. I'm really so excited about that, so excited about the convergence between Mitch and Ash's fears and their misbeliefs and their themes. But now that we have the misbelief, and now that we have the theme, there's one final piece to look at, and that's how we got from the fear to the misbelief. Because now we have the theme, we have the opposite of that, which is the character's misbelief, but then we need to know what the character's greatest fear is that led to this misbelief. Going back to Frozen, Elsa's greatest fear was that she was going to hurt Anna. And so her misbelief is she's better off alone. What is the fear that led to the misbelief in Ash and Mitch that got them to the place where they didn't believe that they were worthy of giving love or receiving love? And to answer that question, I decided to just go back to their childhood and figure out a pivotal moment for them, or just the way that the world worked for them back then. And now this doesn't have to be some sort of big traumatic event to work out. It just has to be something that's going to connect to this misbelief about the world. For Ash, I decided he's always thought a little bit differently, was always a little bit strange as a child. And so his family wouldn't quite understand him, wouldn't quite give him the praise that he was searching for unless and until he conformed with their expectations about how the world worked. So his fear is essentially not being loved for who he is. The way that he deals with that is his misbelief of no one's going to love me anyway, so I'm not going to accept love. And that's how it all connects. For Mitch, she was the second of 4 kids and was always the good girl. She was always helpful, and she would always get praise when she was helping other people and taking care of other people. So she learned that in order to be loved, she had to be useful. That is why she believes that she deserves to give love to people but she won't receive it unless she earns it. And that's where her misbelief about the world stems from. And now neither of these things are super traumatic for these characters. They actually both have pretty good relationships with their families. It's just things that happen that help them shape the way that they think about the world and they see their place in it. And so those are the fears that Mitch and Ash have. Mitch's fear is that she's not going to be lovable unless she does something to prove herself lovable. And Ash's fear about the world is that he isn't inherently lovable, so he shouldn't believe anyone who likes him. He should run away from them because they want something from him. And of course, when I look back at the backstory, because I did rewrite the backstory a little bit based on this, I decided that Mitch and Ash reinforced each other's fears about the world when they broke each other's hearts. So Mitch, after Ash broke her heart, demanded an apology from him for not saying he loved her fast enough. And to Ash, that said, oh, the way that I'm responding to love isn't good enough for you, and now you want something from me. You want me to conform just like the rest of them. Screw you. Mitch wrote Ash a song, was really nice to him. She told him she loved him, and he didn't say it back, and he started ignoring her, acted really weird. She wondered, what did she do to deserve that? She wasn't nice enough. She wasn't good enough. And so it's eating away at her, like, what didn't I do right? Why don't I deserve all of the love that I'm pretty sure I do, right? And that's kind of how these fears and wounds and misbeliefs interact within story. They create complications for your characters. They create misunderstandings. They create conflict. Because these two characters, their fears and misbeliefs are surrounding whether or not they're lovable. And obviously they are, but they need to learn that within themselves first before they can accept love from each other. So those are my characters' fears and misbeliefs about the world, and also how they're connected to theme, and how I came up with all of it. I hope this was helpful to you, my explaining my process and also explaining just like in general what all of this means. It was helpful to me just to be able to say it out loud and realize, yeah, I think I did make the right decisions. Though we'll see as I start the rewrite whether or not they are the correct ones. If you have any questions about this kind of character work, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to answer them. And if you want me to do more on this kind of character work, let me know, because I'm happy to keep going about this kind of theory and the more methodical ways of figuring out what character traits work, what don't with your certain story. I'm super like left brain in a lot of ways, and because getting all of this stuff into a structure allows my more creative brain to really just flow and create interesting, exciting, original things. If you like this video, please hit the like button or hit subscribe if you're really enjoying it, because those shows of support mean so much to know that I'm helping or entertaining you, or that you're just even interested in this film, because I'm so excited to continue to share my process and eventually share the film with you. Thank you all so much for watching, and that's it for this week, so I'll see you next week with more on Cake Fight Presents The Making Of.